Hello guys, and no, I am not going to comment on another portion of Trump's BS where he tries to blame anyone but Russia for the Russian aggression and the Russian invasion. Well, first of all, because I am not a doctor. And second, because we have a better topic, a topic that is worth a new Russian geography lesson. And all because our drones were working successfully in Yelabuga, Tatarstan, really far away from the Ukrainian border, demilitarizing Russian facilities that produce a lot of Shahed drones. These are Iranian drones, but Russians learned how to produce them and name them Heran. What is interesting, for hours, Russian air defense could do nothing. And a serious fire destroyed partially Moscow city in Moscow, which is another symptom Russia is collapsing, and no, Trump cannot save it. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the defeat and demilitarization of the evil empire and the fall of Putin, subscribe, we will discuss that on the channel. And let's start with this Russian geography lesson, because today our drones managed to reach really deep inside the Russian Federation. Tatarstan is not Russia. It is one of those national republics that proclaimed independence in the 90s. They wanted to be free from Russia, but it's really difficult if you are surrounded by the Russian Federation territories. And right now, Moscow uses this state to produce a lot of drones and other military equipment. I think this is a double-sided process. Well, first of all, they take away all the dangerous facilities, organizations out of Moscow and St. Petersburg, and also having that many weapons on that locations, they kind of control these regions and prevent any movements for the liberation. But I am sure one beautiful day, this totally artificial Russian Federation that consists of hundreds of different nationalities, languages, and cultures that right now the Kremlin suppresses will dissolve and Tatarstan will be independent. But right now, once again, the Kremlin uses it for collecting money, conscripting people, and also producing drones. Yelabuga is a big city that has always been connected with military production since the Soviet Union, and right there is a drone building plant. It can construct up to 6,000 drones per year. They are known as Heran in the Russian army, but the technologies are purely Iranian, and they build them in that Tatarstan. Because one more very important fact, this location is 1,200 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border. So drones have to travel literally through a number of national republics, through a number of very normal, like if we compare that, very normal European countries to reach that Yelabuga. Just think how vulnerable Russia is. This is one of the main facts that remains investigated by the global media. And a very important fact, this plant was visited by the Ukrainian drones very successfully in April 2024. This was the first time we broke the record and reached that deep inside Russia. Since then, there are a number of new records set by Ukrainian drones, flocks of the Ukrainian drones, but just think about that. We attacked them in April 2024. They knew how bad it is for the production of so important drones, and they could not do anything. And right now there are lots of videos that illustrate how Russian air defense works against the Ukrainian drones for hours and fails. And they land successfully with very loud explosions, detonations, and dark smoke. Why? Because Russia is a classical bully, totally unprepared to defend itself. Subscribe to demonstrate your solidarity with Ukraine, and please share these videos if you share my opinion. That is important. What is also important during this work of the Ukrainian drones on the legitimate military object inside the Russian Federation, they had to close two airports, one in Kazan and another one in Nizhnokamsk. And it is also a positive effect because whenever an airport is closed, kind of a lot of people learn about an accident, another smoking accident happening, and thus preventing them from living their life. Exactly what Ukrainians experience, but unfortunately we experience way worse things. But I'm proud that Ukrainian army constantly chooses only legitimate military objects to be neutralized. That is the only working peace plan. And Russia is actually super vulnerable. That is one of the reasons, I am sorry, but I will say it, why they hired Witkoff and Donald Trump to push for these negotiations, which in reality is just an offer to Ukraine and Europe to capitulate. No one will ever accept that. Plus, with these great ideas, tariff wars, and total incompetence of Hexet, Signal Gates, J.D. Vance, and his influence on the world and relations of the United States with lots of countries, and Trump. Here in Ukraine, we often say that we are not sure we want Trump to be on our side because he seems to destroy everything he touches. I don't feel like he is saving the United States right now. Once again, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. But it's obvious that this drafted agreement that was shared by Wall Street Journal, by other media, is purely pro-Russian. Ukraine has to capitulate, Russia has to get everything, and what? No one will accept that, and most importantly, no one will accept that at the moment when Russia is being defeated. They cannot protect their strategic objects. Fires destroy Moscow City, in St. Petersburg, in various places. Lots of their arsenals, military air bases, not mentioning oil refineries. I do hope this epidemic continues because the only way to bring lasting peace to Ukraine, Europe, the United States, Russia, is to defeat and demilitarize Russia, just as it happened after the end of the Second World War. Imagine Hitler or his company staying in power after the major part of Europe is given to them. It would not be accepted, and I believe that our European allies and our American friends, because Trump is not America, realize that if we forgive Putin, if we let him get what he wants, regroup, the war will expand. And it may not be limited with just Europe. And that is why these negotiations in London were obviously cancelled. But if you want to know this ordinary Ukrainian opinion, no one expected anything. And we know that Trump will withdraw from the process just because there was no background, no reason for this process apart from Russia is being on the brink of the collapse and Trump wanting to help them, and Trump not being able to help Ukraine because he's kind of friends with Putin. That is so obvious. And Moscow City was on fire today after the explosion of a car somewhere in the underground parking. And perhaps just for a second, people felt what it is like. Once again, I don't think in this case this was Ukraine, no serious consequences, but this is a demonstration of this level of negligence, of this level of despair inside the Russian population and inside Russia. I'm sure you remember there are millions of times when they destroy their own villages, bomb their own regions, like they do with Belgorod continuously. So our task right now is to remain united, to remain sane, not to analyze Trump's BS because it is worth nothing. And not only when I'm talking about Ukraine, when I'm talking about economy, when I'm talking about business, I'm sure more and more leaders around the world see that and understand that. And I read in the comments below that a lot of people in the United States feel the same way. So our task is to remain united and to know that these bullies, they are very loud, but they fall really quickly. And Putin is already shaking. In all of that, he's bonkers. Even if they have, this deep fake, by the way, we have a nice video on the channel about this future of Putin as a president of Russia forever. But once again, good always prevails over evil. And all these efforts to make Ukraine give up, to destroy the morale of the Ukrainian people, or to blame Zelensky for the invasion of Ukraine 11 years ago, when he was not even a president, that's insane. And no one takes it seriously here. But what we take seriously is this beautiful flocks of the Ukrainian drones that travel to demilitarize evil Russian objects, even if they are 1,000 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border. Thank you so much for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Remember to subscribe to my new one, where I share more of the civilian experience. Also, join me on X, Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, and Discord. And check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. And please support the new fundraiser with United 24 that can save a lot of innocent Ukrainian lives, including lives of children, when demining parks, schools, playgrounds in Kherson, Kharkiv, and Kyiv regions. And I will pin the link in the comment below. Thank you so much for being friends of mine, for being friends of Ukraine. United we stand. Slava Ukraini!